Yo, what's going on, man? Y'all get up in here, man. Y'all get on up in here, man. We're gonna get straight to the point. Um, just have something that I want to express. You know, everybody from the Simply Ball Dropping Network and the Simply Ball Dropping family, man, that supports the channel, and everybody has always said that a lot of things that y'all do in this network has inspired a lot of people, and some of the times that we go live on these networks and on these channels, you always say it helps y'all get through the day because we don't know what people are coping with. And the reason why I wanted to come on today is just to share something. As a 53-year-old African American, a lot of times, men in generally, we neglect going to the doctors to get ourselves checked out and looked at to see if we have any ailments. Well, for a lot of people that don't know, I suffer with high blood pressure and blood clots. And I just go throughout the day acting normal and accordingly, working under normal circumstances. But sometimes your body tells you that something's not right. So the reason why I wanted to come on today, I was almost gone, but the Lord spared my life. Wednesday night, after I got off of a live show, I had some discomfort in my hand, which started the previous Friday. And normally I deal with things in ways that I deal with it. And I'll be like, okay, this will subdue, this will pass. Well, Friday, when I experienced this pain in my right hand and sharp tingles and pains in my fingertip, I Googled some stuff and I was just icing it down to get some relief. And at that particular time, I was explaining to my wife that I got these sharp pains in my fingertips and my fingers are on fire. And my hand was bothering me on the side. So I would ice it down just to get some relief. So come Tuesday, as I was working, I had to get an ice bag to put on my hand just to get some relief because my fingers and fingertips was tingling and they was on fire, just on the right side. And I said, okay, this will go away. But Wednesday night, after I got off the live show, told my wife, I said, man, something ain't right. This is getting uncontrollable, but I have a high threshold for pain because back in 1993, when I was in the military, I got shot in the neck. So I have a high tolerance for pain. And I just thought by icing it down, it would, subdue. But that wasn't the case. So I told my wife, I said, man, I might need to go to the emergency room. You might need to take me to the emergency room. I got to get this looked at. So I'm glad I did. So my wife took me to the emergency room on Wednesday night about 9:30. Got to the emergency room. They checked me in. I told them what symptoms I was having. So immediately all the nurses and staff members met me at the door as me and my wife was going back for them to put me in the room. The first thing they did, they hooked me up and did an EKG. They proceeded to put an IV in my arm and put some fluids in my arm. And they checked my blood pressure. And it was alarming. My blood pressure was 226 over like 157, which I didn't feel faint. I didn't feel lightheaded. I didn't feel dizzy. I wasn't getting blurred vision, but it was this tingling sensation in my hand. So immediately they said that they needed to do a CAT scan on my brain to see if I was having stroke-like symptoms or if I did have a stroke. They did the CAT scan on my brain, and the test came back negative. Also, they did an ultrasound on my leg to where I was diagnosed with deep vein thrombosis, DVT, that's blood clots. They did the ultrasound on my leg. The radiologist came back with the test and they said they didn't see no active DVT, which is blood clots. And that was a thank you moment because I've been dealing with blood clots for the last 4 years. I've been on medication, been taking Eliquis 2 times a day, blood thinners. So that prevents, from more clots building up and also preventing strokes. So the blood pressure was so alarming to them that they had to put me on a drip, a slow drip, I think it was Cardine, to bring my blood pressure down. So the Cardine liquid was working and it was going in my system. So it was bringing my blood pressure down slowly. But at the rate of that, the doctors were so alarmed that the local hospital that my wife took me to, they had to admit me to a larger facility. It's a new facility, Baylor Scott and White, in our area that was just built. I had to be transported at 3 a.m. in the morning to a major facility. And as they took me in, they took me to the ICU unit, which I didn't know I was in the ICU unit. So the doctors there met me, hooked me up to a machine, put me on, did another EKG, was taking my blood and sugar, and also had all these things that I was hooked up to on my chest, and blood pressure was still up there. They gave me another codeine, codeine or something. I'm pronouncing it wrong. It's something for blood pressure. And they hooked me up to that to bring my thing down. So at 8 o'clock in the morning, they took me down to get an MRI on my brain, which the guy that was doing the MRI, he didn't even prepare me to let me know, what the expectations was, how long I was going to be in here or anything like that. In the MRI room, my nurse had to push all the electronics down because I was hooked up to so much stuff. They had to monitor my blood pressure while I was in the MRI machine. And I'm not claustrophobic or anything like that, but the guy never told me how long I was going to be in there. He just laid me down on the table, put something up under my feet, put some cotton swabs in my ear, put a headphone on my ear, and strapped my head down and put me in a machine. And they started the test. So basically, I was in that machine for 30 minutes. And I'm just in there praying, like, when is this going to be over? You hear all the sounds, taking all the scans on your brain. So finally got up out of there, got me back to the room. The results came in. I had a guy from the telemed doctors. We was on a conference call. He was like, everything checked out. There's no evidence of a possible stroke or anything like that. So your brain is functioning normal and everything is good. I probably had every test ran on me known to man. I had I think it was a echocardiogram on my heart. They had to come up there and do an echocardiogram on my heart to see if my heart was functioning normal. They tested my lungs and my kidneys. Every number that was provided back to me, they said, all your other numbers look good, but this blood pressure. And this might be the extent of why you having this tingling sensation in your right hand that's burning you and the pain. And I'm sitting there saying to myself, I come into the doctors to check out my hand, and it led to everything else. This is stuff that we as Black African males, we disregard. A lot of Black African males don't want to go to the doctors because it's the what if. They don't want to hear no negative results. But in the midst of all this, I had some wonderful nurses, my supportive wife that was side by side with me all the way through, overnight, sleeping on, the hospital couch. Couldn't get comfortable. I couldn't get comfortable, couldn't get no sleep because it seems like every time I would try to get some sleep, the nurses would come in. They would have to do this and all this. So on Thursday night, when I was in the hospital, my blood pressure was still elevated. They didn't know why my blood pressure wasn't coming down. And it was like 2:00 in the morning. The nurse came in and she had to up my dosage on the Cardine, the slow drip, and had to get it to like 7.5. So my blood pressure would come down. So she took me off of the Cardine and she instantly shot some blood pressure medicine up through my IV, which that blood pressure medicine, whatever they shot in me, I forgot the name of it. It put my blood pressure up to 226 over like 189. I was on my deathbed. So the nurse went out, called the doctor. All these nurses came in and they started praying over me. And at that time, I'm just sitting there laying, my wife getting nervous. She had to run to the bathroom. And I'm just sitting there like, man, pull me through this. And as the young nurse was praying, to listen to her prayer, to what she was saying, I knew I was in trouble. But she prayed so gracefully over me. And she said, a lot of people that are in this IC unit don't get out of here, don't make it out of here. But I'm going to be a testimony because I'm going to walk up out of here a new person. So with the nursing staff that I had, but particularly this one nurse, Ursula, she was great. She was detailed. She kept me informed on everything that was going on, kept my wife on everything that was, going on and informed. And then finally, after so many blood pressure options with pills and stuff like that, 6 different blood pressure pills that they gave me, it finally came to a head. It finally brought my blood pressure down to a bearable, to where the doctor was glad. And he said, if your blood pressure stays steady with these pills, I think we found a combination and we can discharge you. Taking all these different pills finally got my blood pressure down to like 145 over 84. My lowest reading was like 120 over 82, almost normal. So I'm saying this to say all this, man. I was almost gone, but the Lord spared my life, man. And I owe it all to him. And I just want to thank my wife for being there with me step by step. Bear with me. And all I could think about when I was laying there, I was trying to think about all the happy thoughts. I thought about my son because he's about to graduate. Thought about my grandkids. I thought about everybody that meant the world to me and how I'm supposed to be here. I've always talked about leading up to my son's graduation. That's something I would never miss in the world. So, guys, I'm here to tell you, if you got anything that's going on with you, please go get yourself checked out. Because I did it in the nick of time. Because if I would have waited any longer, I wouldn't be here to tell y'all my testimony. I don't cry a lot, but as my mind replays everything that went on, you get emotional. And y'all guys see me on the podcast being funny and having changes, but I'm sharing y'all a vulnerable moment to let everybody know that I know the stress of the world hinders a lot of people on what's going on. But sometimes we don't know what people go through unless they tell you. Y'all might see me on the podcast being all happy, happy-go-lucky and things like that. But I struggle with the same things that y'all struggle with. It's just life. We all go through a lot of things, but we don't know until somebody tells you. And that's why I wanted to share this to you guys that support me on my journey on doing this podcast and all the people that's been rocking with me over the years. So I owed it to come on here to tell you guys that I wouldn't be here, but the Lord spared my life. Just laying there thinking of all the happy stuff that my wife used to tell me. Just think about the happy things. So I got to thinking, as time gets closer to my son's graduation, I've always prepared myself for it. To see my son walk across that stage, because it means the world to me. And the Lord answered my prayers. So, fellas, as you get older, please go get yourself checked out. Anything that's abnormal to you guys, you have to go get it checked out because it leads to other stuff and it could lead to your cause of death. Shout out to all the nurses at Baylor Scott and White that prayed over me, looked over me, took good care of me. Shout out to the whole hospital staff that checked on me. Shout out to my wife, very supportive. That's my ride or die right there. Shout out to my son for checking on me. Because sometimes when I go to places like that, I don't want my son to see me down. I don't want my son to see me in that stage. But as I was getting discharged early this morning last night, my son was there to see me walk up out of that hospital. So guys, do me a favor and do yourself a favor. And even women, anybody that comes across this podcast, comes across this testimony, go get yourself checked out, man. Go get yourself checked out. And thank you for listening. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, turn your post notifications on so you know every time Simply Ball drops another hot banger. And just remember, man, the Lord spared my life. And that's going to wrap up another episode of the Simply Ball Dropping Podcast. I'm your host and the man behind the mic, K-Sap. We'll catch you on the next one. Deuces.